Welcome to Season 3 of This Is How My Brain Works, the podcast about living, thriving, and laughing through the ups and downs of neurodiversity. We explore the real stories, the real struggles, and the real strengths that come with thinking differently.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. I'm Sarah Hines, and today it's an all-ladies episode. I'm joined by Krista Gano. The boys are, I don't know, maybe they're on assignment, maybe they are chasing squirrels. I hope they're enjoying themselves, whatever they're doing. This week we're going to talk about how much ADHD is in the news and sort of this, I feel like it's an awakening. I know that doing this podcast for me, and I think for you too, Krista, has been an awakening on how our brains work in this world and how we can better manage it and kind of accept ourselves. But in this, last, I guess it's actually been 2 weeks, there's an article about ADHD that came out in the National Geographic November 2025 issue called What Makes Adult ADHD Different? And then they have another couple articles like Women and ADHD. And at around the same time, my stepmom sent me an article from Apple News, I think it was in the BBC, about ADHD and the rise in diagnoses. And is this an epidemic? Are people overdiagnosing themselves? Does everybody now have ADHD? Is a question that I've heard a lot, and I get kind of bristly about it because I definitely have ADHD and I don't feel heard when people say, well, everyone has it now, and you're just using it as an excuse. And anyway, that's kind of where I'll start it. Krista, what's that bring up for you right now?
Well, I think initially what it brings up is this idea of like, of being dismissive to people who may say that they have this or that, what I think is really funny is often the people that push back most on my ADHD when I talk about it are people who I think are also undiagnosed and should maybe do some reflection.
But at you, whoever that was.
But I also think that, even if someone, say, went through the test and didn't get the diagnosis of ADHD or whatever that looks like, I think when someone is saying, the behaviors make me wonder if I have this thing, what they're really saying is, I'm dysregulated, I'm overwhelmed, and I need help. And so I don't care kind of what the diagnosis is on some level. Someone is saying, I need help. And if the answer to I need help is you're making excuses and we just don't care that you've expressed a need for support, that stinks. So I think it's really important to realize that anyone who comes out and says, I think I might have this thing, or my brain may work differently, you gotta listen to them, I think. And again, if we keep doing these studies, maybe someday somebody will give me a sweet treat for saying that I think so many more of us have brain differences than don't. Like, I don't know what neurotypical is. I don't know. I remember when my oldest was first diagnosed with sensory integration disorder. And some of that, comes with chewing and chewing shirts, or we see it all the time with kids, sort of exploring their environment in ways that are all sensory. They used to lick cars. I used to be like, please stop licking the cars. And but there was a sensory thing.
Outside?
Yeah, outside, after, like, if it rained, there was like this, I would be like, please stop looking. But it's exploring our worlds in a sensory way. And there's sensory seekers and there's sensory avoiders, and there's also a mix. Sometimes you're seeking certain kinds of sensory and you're avoiding other kinds of sensory, right? The misophonia, like, it's all. But I had a therapist tell me once, we all do it. If you chew on a pen, you're regulating. If you have
bite your nails,
if you bite your nails, if you have to excuse yourself for a moment to go take a short walk to breathe and calm down, These are all self-regulation, and but the difference is that there are societal ways that have decided that it's cool and okay to stem that way, and then there are ways that people have decided are weird. And so people who chew through their pens, nobody thinks a thing about it, but someone who, you know, might need to stand up and spin in a class, that's not what is considered, in quotes, normal. So I think we've negotiated a lot of these ideas through time without names put to them, like neurodiverse, ADHD, autism, ADHD, sensory integration. Like these things are new that we've classified or are talking about them, but I think we have been negotiating with the behaviors for millennia.
Well, I would actually, yes, I agree. And I would say that if we're looking at millennia, what humans did 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago versus what's happening today are very different. So in that National Geographic article, there's a quote from a doctor at Harvard Medical School, John Rady, and I hope I'm saying his name right. And thank you, John, for interviewing yourself, getting interviewed for this article, where he says, it is legitimate to look at the possibility of acquired attention deficit. And what that basically means is, have we so divorced ourselves from nature and the world that we evolved in that we now have to regulate ourselves so much more because we're not out touching grass. We're not out feeling the wind on our face. We're not out looking at infinite colors. Instead, it's, you know, what's the color ratio on a computer screen, on a TV?
No.
Pretty limited. It's not infinite colors. It's, 16 bits by whatever. I'm not a computer person. Sorry, guys.
But
But
what's so interesting about that is I do communication training with physicians and to help them connect faster with their patients and other care providers, not just physicians. But I was working once with a ophthalmologist, right? Is that the doctor? Not an ophthalmologist. And they were saying about how, our eyes were created to look at like the vista, to look at, because we're out hunting, we're looking for the bison on the vista or whatever. Yeah. And he said, and now we've got so much close-up work that we do with these screens and our phones and the computers that he said you get to a certain age where where he is recommending to his patients, please go outside and look at something long range, because what is happening is we're having a hard time. Our eyes are not, our focus on our eyes is taking longer to go from this long to so close up. And it's because we're close up to more than what our eyes were created to handle. And so from an evolutionary standpoint, our eyes, the biology of our eyes have not caught up with what is happening with our modern world. And I think that that's a great connection piece to what you're talking about. And I've wondered that all the time. When I left Los Angeles, I said to somebody, man, this place like gives you manic depression, because, when you're in entertainment, you're often waiting for someone to say yes to you. And the moment that someone says, yes, I think we can do something, and then it gets taken away from you. Everything shifts under you. That happens all the time in the entertainment industry. And so you start to calibrate to high highs and low lows. And even if you're a really even keel person, you start to be affected by that, which sounds the same as again, all of this is sort of sounds the same as what you're talking about. Like, has our environment created something that our biology wasn't going to do on its own?
yeah, and it's like, we talk about athletes and training all the time, but you don't have to be an athlete to be in training. We literally wake up in the morning and are in training for what we're going to do with the rest of our life. I want to say it's Michelle Obama told her kids, you're practicing who you're going to be every single day. So if what you're doing isn't leading to where you want to go, you need to change that. So, I do think that I used to joke that having kids was like structural ADHD, because you're in the middle of something and your kid comes running in and needs X, Y, or Z. So you stop what you're doing, you reorient towards the task with them, and then you turn back to what you need to do. And over time, that constant interruption means that your focus is harder to maintain over a long period of time. And before we got on, Krista and I were talking about what it's like to be a parent of, especially the primary parent for small kids or even middle-aged kids. And by middle-aged, I don't mean
Teens.
I mean teens, but there's some overlap maybe between middle-aged people and teens. So there's a joke in there somewhere, y'all. But there's, what would a couple things. I'd love to go back to the parent I was before I really knew and understood what ADHD overwhelm and ADHD rage looked like, so that I could tell myself, hey, I know you think you need to do this X, Y, or Z for your kid right now, but take a break, because you'll do it a lot better if you tend to that overwhelm first. And maybe that just looks like putting them in a safe place and putting yourself in a safe place. Maybe it just looks like going and touching grass instead of making dinner. But, and the other part of this for me is sort of a lot of shame around how I showed up as a parent when I didn't understand myself better, when I didn't have the time or think that I had the time to take that beat to regulate. And it's really easy to say, put your oxygen mask on first. But like,
but I don't think I understood it until now.
There's a yeah.
I understand it now. When the kids were little, everything felt so, there was so much more sensory input. Everything felt so much more dire, and you didn't feel like you had the availability to take some of that time sometimes. And I agree. I wish
sometimes you don't. They're in the bathtub. They could drown.
Yeah, totally.
Or they need to eat, or they just pooped their diaper, and you can't just let them, or there's,
But I wish I would have known. I certainly did not know when my kids were younger what my brain was doing. And I think it would have helped me looking, to have that knowledge.
And have a partner who understood it and could empathize with it, even if they don't understand, or even if they don't like it,
but my partner has it. So and we didn't know that about him either. I mean, we were suspect about certain things, but it's like just having both of us having that knowledge. We're such better communicators now, understanding what our brains are doing, than we were when the kids were little. And it's already.
Do you guys still melt down at home? And if so, how do you handle it now that's different from how you handled it before you knew how your brain worked?
Well, it's interesting because I do think we still have meltdowns. Our meltdowns, I think, look different than they were. They're not explosive, they're seething, and they're long, and they sort of require you to go just take a break. And I think, but now that the kids are older, I think it's really easy. It's so much easier to go like, I just need a break, and I can be on, I said it to Cash last night. I was like, I need you to leave my room right now. I just need a break. Come back in 15. We'll chat. And those things are different when you've got, intelligent beings who also have their own emotions they're trying to regulate, who can listen to that.
But to caveat that, it's not. So I think the knowing how your brain works, in addition to the fact that they're older. So
yes,
for example,
100%.
My mom, she'll never listen to this, so there's no danger. And I love my mom dearly. And she does not have ADHD or autism, according to her. She does not understand her own overwhelm. She does not understand how quickly she cycles between being fine, being overstimulated, and flipping out. In fact, she's still firmly in the camp that if she has a flip out, it's because I did something to piss her off. It's my fault.
Yeah.
Which, that I probably was the same way with my kids until I knew how my brain worked. So I could say, oh, I'm dysregulated.
Yeah.
And it's not anybody else's responsibility to cater to the things that overwhelm me. It's my responsibility to recognize them and take the time or use the supports that I need.
Yeah. But it's really interesting because my youngest still probably has the most, he's the youngest. So meltdowns at times, and it doesn't happen a lot. But the way that, he wants to regulate is to be alone, but he also doesn't want to be alone in the sense that he wants to like come in and sort of scream and yell or whatever, and then go slam a door and then be alone. And like, so he just wants to, so we definitely, and it's really interesting because for him, I'm always like, have you eaten? Because often,
That's
so
me.
often his dysregulation is caused by not eating.
And we
And
used to call that just hypoglycemic.
yeah, yeah, no, it's like, and it's so funny because actually my oldest used to do it too. I'd say, have you eaten? And the response was, that is not what this is, and just full on. And literally I'd go get like a sandwich and I would just like hand it and like just watch them shove it and they're angrily into their mouths. And you can just see it, like you can just see that it helps. And so often, there's that. But I think what I mentioned to you earlier is like we are in a family. I think people would describe us. We don't know how anybody else lives. This is our house. We have a house full of tremendous love, of incredible honesty, of unflinching authenticity. So I'm going to say that. And in that space
Sounds
with everybody,
amazing. Can I come?
well, maybe, but I think people have said to us, your family is like an Italian household. And I think what they mean is that we're loud. We have no problem screaming at each other. But then I will say we have modeled from the very beginning accountability and apology, and good apologies, not crappy ones. And we all do that. And so we may be louder than some, we might be more dysregulated than some, but I would also argue that we are all accountable to one another.
And it sounds like accepting too, which I think is a
Yes,
really
like we all
critical
get it.
part of it.
We all get it. And so I think what we're always trying to figure out is like in this safe bubble in this house, it's one thing, but when you go out into the world, it's another story. And I think trying to help kids navigate that when maybe when you're still trying to figure it out and navigate it is on your own, which is how I feel
And
is,
it's probably hard for all of us to be navigating this kind of to circle back if we've got acquired attention deficit. If if
yeah.
the complaint that everyone's making that everybody has it now, well, let's assume that's true instead of as a means of saying nobody has it if everybody has it. Can we flip the script and say, okay, we're all changing a little, more easily dysregulated, more easily overwhelmed because we're not spending the time getting that long view with our eyes. I'm looking out at the
Mhm.
clouds right now just to give it to myself, to feed
Yeah.
my evolved eyeballs that need that, um, or that part of us that we are primates. We were meant to dance every day around a fire and sing songs that we made up ourselves with other people who are singing songs and dancing around the fire with us. And we're siloed into our little bedrooms, in our car, on our phone, without the benefit of other people just letting loose and singing at the top of their lungs, singing quietly, humming, holding hands,
Yeah.
taking
Well,
berries.
and and unless I hearken back to saying I had a past life that I can remember, I don't, we don't get the benefit other than through someone else's lens of what, previous times looked like. Um, but I will venture to say that people who had differences existed before. They've always existed. It's sort of like having the conversation about our trans community, or just actually anyone in our LGBTQ community. It's like for people to act as if it's a new phenomenon is crazy pants. It's like insanity. And I mean, hello, Joan of Arc. Let's just start there. But there's,
Or just hermaphrodites,
yeah,
like
right. I mean, or
XXYs.
in the Bible, eunuchs, like whatever. Like there's like we have been a a kaleidoscope of humanity since the very beginning. You know, my dad talks about how my dad skipped a grade. They put him up. They had him skip a grade. Brilliant, my dad. Also, I believe ADHD. But what did they do then? You should put that kid in a sport. That kid needs to go run it out. So they were regulating. They were doing it. The difference, what I think what started to happen in schools at some point is when they started cutting art and cutting sports and cutting all of these things and shoving, all these kids into these classrooms with no outlet but to sit down and just try to pay attention all day long. That was a turning point that I think really started to screw with our kids. And misunderstanding the correlation between art and sport and music and all of those things and helping the brain to actually work. Like, we will learn math better if we're in music. We will, like at some point when education shifted and took everything and also took shop out, woodworking, homemaking. I mean, I took a home economics class where we learned to cook and we learned to do things. I took a shop class. I took, obviously theater. Like, they took all of this out of our schools.
Yeah.
And we are not built to just sit and
at a desk,
suck up information at a desk without being tangible with it. And I think that there's a lot of things that I think have happened with maybe us, being able to identify ADHD and autism differently now, because we're putting kids in places where they could offshoot some of that in previous generations with the schooling and the way it was structured, and they're trapped now.
It's
so
awful. I can't even imagine. Like the cutting. One of the things that a lot of schools do is if you don't finish your work or if you misbehave in class, the punishment is to take away the outside recess time.
We actually had to get a doctor's note. We had to get a doctor's note and have it on our kids' 504s saying that was not allowed.
Yeah, I did too, but it's just so funny that that's what people and I don't mean to disparage teachers. I know that they're trying to manage all these kids and
they have more kids than they used to have.
Yeah, it's just so much on every, as you were talking and you were talking about sports, I immediately thought of club sports and the kids who play like volleyball, and it's $3,000 to $6,000 a year to be on these teams.
Oh yeah.
Where before you could just go down to the park and play with your friends for a couple hours after school.
We've corporatized all of it in a way that, I don't know, that's a whole other conversation.
Corporatized or capitalist, we've monetized things.
Yeah.
And it's important because people have to, your time is so money now that in order to put the time in, the coach has to pay their family, has to feed their family, has to pay their mortgage or pay their rent. And we can't be doing all this stuff for free. There's not that, and oh my gosh, I'm going to sound like an anti-feminist. I'm not. But in some respects, it's having to have two parents working to pay for everything. And then you have to pay someone to take care of your kid or to do these extra activities with your kid because we don't have that built-in relief.
But there's also that pressure that I think we have to make sure your kids are signed up for. Like, I will have to say, I hit a point where I was like, I reject that pressure. I am creative, resourceful, and whole, and I was not signed up for every single after-school activity possible. And I, now it was a little different in that I was of that generation of you drink from the hose pipe, you get out and you come back in at dark, and that's that. And we had rich lives of going anywhere, doing anything. So I understand.
And being physically active. I feel like there's not enough time unless you're in something organized to build in a consistent exercise or activity practice.
So I understand that the time was different. People felt safer to sort of shove their kids outside and let it be. And that we're trying, and a lot of these things that we're doing after school are about, replacing that time spent. Like I understand the logistics around it, but I did just at one point go, you know what? I'm just not doing that. We're not doing that with our kids. Like if one sport, but if they start to hate, my kids don't like sports. They just don't like it. So they do other things. And now in high school, I stopped making them do, they can get plugged into what they want to be plugged into in high school, but I am not doing this high performance soccer teams. And this is nothing against the parents who choose to do that. I just, for me, felt like my kids just need to be kids. I don't need to over schedule them. And I know for all of us in my family, we all need, in order to be regulated, we need time at home without expectation. And it's probably one of the best things I did was to sort of push back against this idea, this middle class American idea that our kids have to be excelling and achieving and doing something at every minute, and just say, listen, we need space and time. And that's just that.
Yeah. The
only saves a lot of money too.
Well, the thing I have about it is I want us to be me and the people I know to be slightly more physically active. Back to the sitting at the desk all day.
Yeah.
And then coming home and sitting and doing homework. And then suddenly it's time for bed. That's more, I don't want, and I'm happy that people do it, the organized sports, all of that. But it's like, I just want to go shoot the basketball at the corner for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or walk the dog for 30 minutes. And given the constraints in schooling, it's hard to find those 30 minutes.
Which, but Sarah, the doing that, what worthy work in the sense that when they grow and they're out on their own as adults, the reality of the situation is it may only be a 30-minute walk a day, or it might be like the idea that they're going to be doing, soccer, some sort of, I'm sorry, I pick on soccer, but they're the most organized sport in our area. But like the fact that and then some people will play in adult leagues, but again, like I think for the most part, many people are going to have to find pockets of time as we get older to do that self-care. And so, yeah, I think the fact that we have the opportunity of sharing that with our kids now, and it's not right for everybody. It's not perfect, but in terms of figuring out ways to self-regulate in a world that really wants to keep you dysregulated, I think we have to find ways to manage those things that are realistic for our lifestyles.
I agree. That's why I get up at 5 a.m. sometimes. Yeah.
I've started it too. I love it when the time changes, actually.
Yeah.
I know most people don't like it. I love it because it's so much easier to get up at 5 a.m.
Get a quick walk in and then get everything else started.
Yeah. Yeah. With it in the quiet before everybody else starts to get up.
So to circle back, it was really refreshing to read these articles this past week or two. And it was refreshing to hear that there is some research starting to show that the world we live in might be changing how we regulate and how we perceive it. And to Krista's point, there's always been, brain differences, lots and lots of difference. And now that our lives tend to have a more uniform path in a lot of ways, we live in houses, we look at phones, we have to earn money that's in a very structured way. There's a lot less bartering going on. That maybe that's changing how we have to interact with it. And it's because, find new ways to relieve that pressure and feel good and get the shame out and be accountable. So,
but also I think it's nice to have, people saying, you're not making this up. This is not, or you're not, I don't know who wants to walk around and be like, hey, I don't know what benefits I get from saying I'm ADHD. Like it's not like someone goes, when I say that, it's not like someone goes, oh my gosh, here, let me make room for whatever that is that means.
Yeah,
no,
let me pay for your life. No.
Yeah, I don't get
like
I don't even get a gold star. Like nobody is like anything. If anything, all it does is make them go, I thought she was a little weird and now I get it. Okay, great. We're going to start with some understanding. But it's not like, people are not claiming this because it's it's not the same as saying like I just got I just graduated with my master's degree in neuroscience. It's not that. We have
Not attention seeking, it's understanding seeking, acceptance
Yeah.
seeking.
It's because we're so tired of walking through the world and being misunderstood. We're just trying to create a space where maybe we can, have some understanding so that we can be who we really are. And I think that's the thing that I would like to, if we're going to wrap up, because I know we need to, is so much of this for me at least, has been realizing that I cannot be authentic with people and being really sad about that. And so some of this is in me wanting to tell people what I've got going on in my brain, is to try to create like a foundation that of understanding, that we can just maybe connect better or understand each other better, or I have the ability to be more, to mask a little less, or to be a little bit more honest. And I have varying degrees of success, but I also don't know how else to be anything other than who I am. And I've had middle life years, many years of trying, of doing that. And I'm just tired and I don't want to do it like that anymore.
Yes.
So,
Hallelujah.
so
like, yeah.
Even if it's just us trying to be like, are you my people? You're my people. We can be honest. And you're just, even only if all you ever do in being honest around how your brain works is just find your people. And even if it's just a small group, it's a win, if you ask me.
And
bless you, Sarah. Oh,
maybe 6 more? No, hopefully that stops.
All right.
Sorry, everybody. It's also just getting space. It means this is how my brain works. Do you need space from me? Do I need space for me? Can we take space together? And just occupying space in a way that feels better for everybody, not just, so telling someone I have ADHD isn't to get the attention, to toot my own horn, to ask for them to do something for me. It's just giving space to that and allowing it to exist. So we hope that this has helped you if you feel these ways, if you love people who feel these ways, or if you just have to work with people who are like that. Maybe this will help you a little bit. And thanks for joining us.
We'll link the articles or titles and everything in all of our descriptions below. And we hope that you'll check out the articles. We're happy that people are starting to talk about it.
Yeah. And have a great rest of your week and take space. Bye, y'all.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. This podcast is the creative work of This Is How My Brain Works. It is not authorized for use in training, development, or refinement of artificial intelligence or machine learning systems. Any attempt to copy, analyze, or repurpose this audio for AI training is explicitly prohibited.